Welcome in to sportsbookreview.com. You are watching the College Football Show. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And we have got a lot to discuss today. This is our second one. So before we get started, if you would so kindly, go ahead and hit that like button. It's a thumbs up right down there at the bottom. Make sure you are subscribed. That way you get notified every single time that we jump into this channel. We're going to have a ton of picks, a ton of previews, etc. We've already got the Big 12 preview up. If you want to go back and check that out, obviously it is on the channel, but you can find all of it over at sbrpicks.com/NCAAF. So that's short for NCAA football, of course. But go on and check that thing out, sbrpicks.com/NCAAF. We are going to discuss the Big Ten today. We're going to talk about Cade Mays and the NCAA's just ridiculous. You know what? I won't even get into it yet. But we're also going to talk about the updated college football schedule for September. If you thought that we were a long ways away from beginning, you were dead wrong. Absolutely dead wrong. Chris, how is everything going on your end of the world?
Pretty good, man.
You ready to rock and roll?
Yes, sir.
Let's do this. The Big Ten is still discussing whether or not they want to play a spring season. Now, all of the reports that have come out have been anywhere from starting in late February to starting at the beginning of January, etc. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reports that the Big Ten has been working on a revised schedule that would begin in early January. Now, before we discuss all of the different things with that, the beginning in early January, that seems a little crazy to me because if you're not going to be ready to play in October, I don't know that anything is really going to change between October and January. It just seems kind of nuts. Do you agree with that sentiment?
So that was my original thought was yes. I don't understand. This is why I don't know why they're doing a spring season and not a season now and just trying to play, because nothing in our world is going to be different then. So the argument is if they see that the guys playing right now, the 3 Power 5 schools and anybody else is playing, is able to do so and do it safely and have no problems, they want to get their season started as quickly as possible. They've already put this arbitrary rule in to where they can't start until 2021. So they want to start immediately in 2021. So
Right.
somebody made this rule. They have to abide by that rule. And therefore, as soon as that calendar changes, they want to have a plan together, ready to go.
You have got that right. It says the report coincides with Penn State Athletic Director Sandy Barber telling reporters earlier in the week that the league could release a new schedule in a week or so. Michael Fritz jumps in on the chat. He says, "What's up, fellas? What is up, everybody that's watching? If you want to jump in the chat, you can absolutely do that." He said that Chris's volume is low. That's interesting. We'll figure it out. Obviously, second show, we're getting the swing of this thing. We'll figure this thing out as we go. So the reported reason that the Big Ten has decided to start the season as soon as possible is that it wants to have its season finished before the NFL draft, which is currently scheduled to begin April 29th and end May 1st. If the Big Ten were to push the season into the spring, the odds are that many of the top players in the conference would opt out to prepare for their NFL futures. If the season is held earlier, it increases the chances of players like Justin Fields taking part. I am not so sure about that. I think that if they are going to do this show or this season, I think that these NFL players are going to opt out anyway. The combine starts in what, March? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So why would you go through a full season right before the combine? Most people would be working on the skills that you need at the combine, which is increasing your 40 time, increasing your bench press, et cetera. So all of the aesthetics, right? The things that look good for these NFL teams. The NFL's already said they are not moving the date of the draft. So why would these NFL players play through an 8-game season at the beginning of the year and get done just before the combine?
Yeah, they wouldn't have a lot of time to rest or recuperate before the combine. And so therefore, there's a little give and take to that. Some people say because it's only a 10-week season, they could be fresh and ready to go for the combine. And basically the combine would be about the same time as the national championship game would be for everyone else. So they are in prime shape. And then the other side of that is are they beat up, banged up, and not able to perform well? I think each player is going to be individual with that, and I try not to read too much into the combine when I watch it anyway. It's basically underwear Olympics, and I like game film. If I was a player, I would probably try to play because I want game film for these guys to watch more than I want them to see me run around in underwear.
Agreed on that. It still strikes me as a little strange. One, trying to play that many games in one calendar year is really difficult anyway. So we've discussed that already. But the other side of this is you're going to be playing indoors at different sites where you're going to have to travel, et cetera, et cetera. Why would that be any safer in January? I know that we've already hit on it, but
it's not. We've already talked about that though. It's not going to be safer. The safeness of it is completely an excuse to not play. Okay, it's just not.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. So like we said, it would begin the first week of January. It would run through the end of February and into the first week of March. There would be no national championship. There would be nothing to really play for other than maybe a Big Ten championship game.
Well, yeah, it'd be a conference championship.
Yeah, there would be a conference championship, but at that point, you have to see where it falls. If it goes into the combine, if it matters, then there you go. Michael jumps in. He said, "There's no way spring football works. The only thing that'll be different in January are more cases." Maybe so. Although it could be that there might not be as many cases because everybody's already had it. They announced today in Florida that of all the people tested down there, they had a 23.8% positivity rate for the antibodies for everybody. Now, the positivity rate for just the tests was down to like 6.5%, 6.6, whatever it was. It's the lowest it's been since the beginning of June. But the antibodies, 1 out of every 4 people had it or has already had it. So at that point, supposedly, you can't get it again. Who knows, right? So maybe at that point, everybody in the United States has already had it, and we're clear to do whatever we want to do, right? We'll see. Now, the other side of this Big Ten stuff is there are reports that there are 6 Big Ten teams that are still attempting to play in the fall. Now, Chris, I don't know if you've seen this, but Ohio State reporter insider Jeff Snook wrote a Facebook post on Tuesday evening explaining what is allegedly going on behind closed doors, right? Basically, they are trying to do a Big Ten season with 6 teams, and that would be Ohio State, Penn State, Nebraska, Iowa, and then possibly Wisconsin and Michigan. Now, it needs 6 teams to actually work because they are wanting to do a 10-game schedule. It would be just like we talked about earlier this season that the ACC was talking about doing pods where you would limit the exposure by only playing 5 certain teams and you would do home and aways. The only issue here is that Michigan is the one that is really pushing not to do this. Michigan does not want to go and dive into this because their governor is the one that
Michigan, the school wants to do it. Michigan, the AD and the football players and coaches want to do it. The Michigan, the governor doesn't want them to do it.
The governor does not, and the school president is also against it. Yeah, he studies infectious disease. I don't think he's an epidemiologist, but either way. And Michael said, "Oh, good. So in January they won't be risking their lives." I guess that's the case. Yeah. No, we're we'll see what happens with this. I would like to see it just to see what they end up doing with an AP poll, with any number of things. Because how do you include teams that are playing only 5 teams throughout the season in with other people that are trying to do a full schedule?
It would be the exact same. It wouldn't be any different than LSU's schedule. I mean, you get to play Nebraska twice. Well, LSU is going to get to play, Vanderbilt and Missouri. So, we'll call those 2 Nebraska and we'll leave it alone.
That's a valid point.
I don't understand how it's any different.
Well,
they're going to get 10 games. Some of the teams are really good and some of the teams are really bad. And it's just going to work out to where you're going to play them, twice. But that didn't matter.
Maybe not. I was curious to see how it would go down, to see if a loss in one game and then a win in another one would affect anything at all. We'll see. But I don't think I don't
I mean,
think that
if you're Wisconsin and you beat Iowa and Iowa beats you, and that's your only loss outside of both of you lose twice to Ohio State, then that's one thing. But
I,
if, like I said, if you have a loss to Nebraska or one of the bottom feeder teams in that conference that are going to play in this, which I don't know that there are any other bottom feeders. The weird question I've got is what happens if you get 7 teams in the Big Ten that want to play? So let's say Michigan says we're going to defy the governor's odds. We're going to play and we're going to do this. And Maryland's like, hey, we'd like in. Are you going to tell somebody no, you can't play? Because I actually want to be a part of that conversation. I just want to listen to the Zoom call where you have all 7 schools on and you kind of all take a straw poll and we all point to one guy and say, you don't get to do this. I know you're a part of the Big Ten, but we really don't want you here.
that would be interesting. Now, I don't know that we would
want to be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, I don't know that we would be privy to that information, but it would leak somewhere. Somebody would have that information.
I need Michigan and Michigan State to both say we'd like to play, and then I need somebody to push one of them out.
Oh, that would be absolutely hilarious. Oh, that would be so good. So good. All right. So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, all the Big Ten mess is just bananas considering we are only 2 weeks away from football actually starting. So let's go ahead and dive into this. Hashtag Freecadmaze has been a trending topic on social media for multiple days now. On Monday, the NCAA came out and denied an immediate eligibility waiver for Cade Mays, who is a former 5-star offensive lineman. Well, I guess he still would be considered a 5-star offensive lineman that went to Georgia and is now transferring back to Tennessee. And by back to Tennessee, I mean he picked Georgia out of high school, but he lived in Knoxville. He lived in Knoxville and chose to go to Georgia and then decided he wanted to go home. And there are a ton of stories about the quote-unquote toxic environment in Athens and whatever else. And this is all a ploy to try and get it to where he will be eligible immediately. But there was an interesting little tidbit from attorney Tom Mars, who is his former attorney who pushed for this eligibility waiver. And he stated, I am sadly disappointed to say the least, but at this point, I don't think there's anything the NCAA could do about a waiver request that would shock me. I'm starting to think they must use a dartboard to make these decisions. I am confused on what is going on with this anyway, because Cade Mays, everybody else that is put in for a waiver this year has gotten it, especially quarterbacks, right? Other than Joey Gatewood at Kentucky, which, I mean, he announced he was transferring back in December and still hasn't gotten any kind of a ruling. But with this situation, if you were JT Daniels, if you were, whoever else, Tate Martell last year, it didn't matter. Like, he could come up with anything and it would be fine, and he was good. The only issue here is that I believe Kirby Smart told the NCAA, no, we didn't want him to transfer him. We didn't approve it, so the NCAA is putting the brakes on it. But they are voting tomorrow, on Friday, the NCAA Board of Governors, on setting it up to where nobody is using a year of eligibility this season. Like, if you play a full season or not, it doesn't matter. If you decided you wanted to play in the middle of a pandemic, it is not going to count against your eligibility. So if nobody is having a year of eligibility taken away anyway, why in the world would they deny this kid's right to play this season?
And
does this
from Kentucky? Yeah, just pass all the waivers. This is NCAA politics at its best. We see it in basketball all the time. The blue bloods play by one set of rules. Everybody else plays by another. And if you offend or threaten the blue bloods, then you get the hammer brought down and the blue bloods get slapped on the hand. Okay. Yeah. Football is no different. There are haves and have-nots. Georgia has become a have. They are one of the big boys. They like to push their weight around. Kirby Smart is using whatever influence he has to do this, and the NCAA is bending the knee, is kissing the ring, and they are trying to hold this up because they don't want to piss off Georgia. This is, listen, my feelings on Mark Emmert. I'll make it clear. Mark Emmert makes almost $3 million a year to sit and do nothing I'm talking absolutely nothing. And I just wish somebody would take that $3 million, put it in a briefcase, and beat him about the head with it. Okay. I mean, that would be a better use of the $3 million than paying him, is to just put it in a sack and beat somebody with it.
I will say this, and far be it from me to stand up for Mark Emmert for anything, but he is paid that $3 million to be beaten by the media like a piñata. That's basically what it is, because he doesn't have a lot to say. His bosses are these NCAA presidents. That's the bottom line. Damian says
he has the say in this stuff.
And not necessarily. Like, he's not part of the committee on infractions, or not committee on infractions, the eligibility bunch. Like, there's people that do that. He's not involved in the middle of all this,
and
right?
He's not their boss. He's not in charge of them. He's not over this entity. He doesn't have a voice or a say in that room.
He does.
The CEO has to answer to the board of every company, but the CEO of every company has a strong voice in every boardroom.
That's a valid point. That
Mark
is
Emmert is less than useless. He's actively harmful.
That's okay. That is one way to look at it. I didn't say, or I didn't think that he was actively harmful.
Oh, I think he's a damage to the sport. I think everything he touches, he seems to screw up, and he actively makes the sport worse.
It was definitely interesting seeing that whole situation with last Friday, when he announced that they were not going to have fall championships. So there were no national championships, and Power 5 programs could do what they wanted to, but there would be no national championship. He scheduled it for like 7 p.m. on a Friday night, and the only way that you could see what it was you had to go watch their web show. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
Because he's a coward, Gary.
Yeah, they deserve better.
That's what cowards do, by the way. They don't take personal responsibility for anything, and they hide from everything. That's because he's a coward.
Yeah. And to be fair, like, if all of these other sports were revenue sports, if they were not driven by those NCAA championships, football is the only one that's not. Yes. But football took that power away from the NCAA back in the early 80s when Oklahoma and Georgia sued for their rights to be able to do their own TV deals. So the conferences were able to do theirs, et cetera, et cetera. They took that power back from the NCAA. You got to wonder if, and that's the thing about this pandemic, is it has shown the flaws in the system through and through. Let me jump into some of these comments. Damian said the NCAA is a joke. Michael said beating someone with $3 million might be the take of the year. I love it, Chris. And then he said, if he was transferring out of the SEC, does this get held up? I don't know. That's a really valid question. They have taken away that, because it used to be a thing, right?
I was going to say, that shouldn't matter.
But they took it out a couple of years ago, and it shouldn't matter at this point. The only thing that can hold up an immediate eligibility waiver is if the former coach did not want you to transfer. That's the biggest thing.
But that guy shouldn't have a voice. I'm leaving you. We're breaking up. You don't get to hold me hostage.
I agree. It's ridiculous.
That's not how this relationships works.
So, yeah, if you want to be involved in it, if you want to see what's going on, go search for the hashtag #FreeCadmaze. You can find a whole lot about it, but there are a ton of stories about his time at Georgia and the reason why he wanted to get out. So hopefully they get that thing cleared up. We'll see what happens. But yes, I'm curious where we're going to go with it. We'll see what the NCAA's final decision is tomorrow on the eligibility for this season. But if they come out and say that nobody loses a year of eligibility this season, regardless of how many games you play, I know a lot of people that are going to be absolutely livid if they don't go ahead and grant. Now, it's in appeals. We'll see what happens.
But it shouldn't have gotten this far. Why are they saying no? This is all I want. I want clarity, and I want explanation, okay? You're taking this money from these schools, and you are paid to make decisions like this. We should have transparency for all of the people that you said yes to. I need to know why you said yes. Okay? That way this is what judges have to do, by the way. This is what happens in a normal court of law, is because it sets precedent. If you say yes to this person, or if you convict this person, if you say no to this person, you have to explain why you did those things, because that is going to set precedent as to how you have to handle other cases. So we know this is not some backdoor deal. You're not just being paid to say one thing and you're doing it. You have to be able to show that there's no biases. There's no nothing. that you're using logic and reasoning, and you're using the same logic and reasoning for every kid.
Some kind of formula. Yeah. So not even formula, just transparency into
and then everybody needs to know that. Everybody gets to see it. Because we're not getting that. We're not getting consistency at all.
I wonder, so do you feel like we get any kind of transparency when the NFL doles down punishment or anything like that?
Oh, no. But those guys, hang on. This is a different situation here. That is a group of individuals that collectively bargained to say we want less practice time and more money, and in return, we're going to give Roger Goodell godlike power. Okay?
Okay.
Now, if these players in college football want to say we'll give Mark Emmert or this board godlike power, but we get X, Y, and Z in return, they made a conscious decision to do that in the NFL. All right. They chose to give one individual that much power. And in return, they got less practice time and more money.
Yeah.
These kids have gotten nothing in return.
Let me jump into the chat here. Damien said the NCAA is like WWE. They will treat you like a puppet. And Michael said, so let me get this straight. Coaches can leave in the middle of the night for a new job, but coaches can hold back players from leaving. That's total BS.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what's going on here.
And leave it to Kirby Smart to take any transfer he can get, has a transfer quarterback that's going to compete for a starting job on this team, but you can't transfer from him.
Yeah.
No. You're a quitter if you leave me, but I'll take any quitter from any other team. I'll take any hired gun or mercenary that I can get.
The reason we always thought that the Tate Martell issue was because Ohio State agreed with the transfer for Tate Martell leaving to go to Miami, right? So Ryan Day came in. Justin Fields is going to be our quarterback. Tate's not going to play here. We're fine with him leaving. That's okay. Like they told the NCAA that, so the NCAA goes, okay, well, you can go ahead and play here. JT Daniels, I really doubt that Clay Helton said the same thing at USC because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they played 3 quarterbacks last year. One of them had already transferred as a graduate transfer to Boise State. You don't want to lose both of them. So I doubt that Clay Helton said the same thing, but I doubt that Clay Helton's got the same kind of pull that Kirby Smart or Ryan Day does. So
100%.
In this situation, it would have to be because Kirby Smart told him he did not want Cade Mays to leave. So, and we don't want to play against him next year.
And shame on Kirby for that. We need to know that publicly, by the way. We should all have that information so that we can just bombard Kirby Smart, so that we can absolutely take this out on him.
Yeah, no, you're right. Michael on YouTube said, transparency and consistency is all we want. NFL players have a union to protect them. These kids cannot defend themselves. That's true.
100%.
That is true.
They made that deal. That's a terrible deal they made, but they made that deal. Enjoy cashing those checks and enjoy all that extra practice time that you don't have to do during the off season. That's good. That's really good because that guy can come take your check anytime he wants.
You got that right. You've got that right. Let me go ahead and remind everybody before we hit on our last topic, hit that like button if you would. We see a few more people jumping in now. Hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the show every Tuesday and Thursday for the foreseeable future. We will be here at 5:30 p.m. Central Time, 6:30 Eastern, doling it out. We're going to be going through previews. We finally got some lines. We finally got all kind of different odds. We are going to have a good time this season. Hopefully you will stick around and join us. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that you know when we're going live. But yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays for right now. That schedule might change once we get into the season. But make sure you do that. Go over to sbrpicks.com/NCAAF to make sure you get all the latest content from sportsbookreview.com. Chris, I got to tell you, I am really excited because when I looked at the calendar today, it's felt like the start of the season is so far away for so long, right? It's just been, we're never going to get there. What's going to happen? Are we even going to have a season, et cetera, et cetera? Today is August the 20th, and we are only 14 days away from the first 2 college football games of the season. And let me go ahead and give a shout out to UAB for deciding to schedule Central Arkansas today. They got that done today and announced it this morning. And we've got South Alabama and Southern Miss that are going to be playing that night. They will be playing at 8 p.m. Eastern time. TV networks have not been announced yet, but we're going to have football on Thursday, September the 3rd. and I am ecstatic. We are about to ramp everything up over here on SBR. It's going to be a fantastic time. Let me go ahead and give you the rundown for the first weekend, Chris. We finally got somewhat of a set schedule. That first Saturday, we've got Arkansas State at Memphis. Pretty entertaining matchup, I think. We've got Houston Baptist at North Texas, Middle Tennessee at Army, SMU at Texas State. So Jake Spavital starting year 2. Okay. Then we've got Eastern Kentucky at Marshall and Louisiana Monroe at Troy. And then here's the headliner of the weekend. Monday night, BYU at Navy on Labor Day night. I cannot wait. We are going to have a fantastic time with this. Any games that weekend that you're excited about, or are you just excited about football, period?
I'm glad to have football back. I'm very curious to see how our Memphis Tigers look. And I'm very anxious to see the BYU Navy game. So
I think that is going to be the most money that has ever been bet on a BYU or Navy game.
I disagree with that. I bet the Navy Army game has loads of money.
You might be right. How about this? The most money ever bet on a BYU game.
Probably. I would give you that one. That you might be right on that one. Army Navy gets the TV all to itself every year, and I guarantee you there have been several years where droves have dropped on it.
Oh, I would guarantee that. I know that you and I bet it every year, so I can't wait. Michael Fritz jumps in on YouTube. He said, I can't wait for the SEC preview. That is coming next week. We are recording that this weekend. It's going to be a good time. We finally got the odds. We finally got the schedule earlier this week. We waited it out to see how many opt-outs and whatnot we were going to get. We want to give you the most up-to-date preview possible. So we're going to knock that out this weekend. It's going to be a good time. He said, I'm excited about this. I'm going to watch some teams I probably would not have if this all had not happened. Yeah, you've got that right. So with that, we thought that we were going to get football September 26th, right? That's when the Big 12 conference schedule begins. That's when the SEC is beginning. We've got football every weekend through then. It's September 12th. I mean, we've got a ton of G5 and ACC.
I was going to say the ACC starts on the 12th, right?
Yeah, they start on the 12th, and it's going down. It's happening. So we're getting closer. We are 3 weeks away from the ACC beginning. We are only 2 away from the first weekend of college football. It's not a ton of games, but you'll be able to watch some teams that you have not gotten to watch, and there are some fun teams with this. SMU
coming through for us.
Oh yeah,
that's my.
You gotta love Bill Clark. Gotta love it. We got football on Labor Day weekend. That is what I'm talking about. All right, that's going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Like I said before, go over to sbrpicks.com/NCAAF. Make sure that you hit subscribe on the channel and that you like the show. And if you want to do us an even bigger favor, remember, this is free. All you got to do is share it out for us. Help us out. Tell some people. Get everybody tuning in and whatnot. It's going to be a good time. We are looking forward to a fantastic season. We're going to start getting into picks and previews and whatnot next week. Cannot wait for it. For Chris and myself, thank you for watching.